Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on you are joining us from. And welcome on the BRICS plus ESG ADR Law Week. This is an event that is actually broadcast by the arbitration channel today. And it's an event we are launching this year with my fellow co-organizer Elisaveta Gromova and Daniel Branches Ferreira. And each one of us brought a unique perspective and commitment to this dialogue, aiming to reunite ESG and ADR dispute resolutions. We want these topics to move together and forward. I also want to express really my deep gratitude to the arbitration channel and particular Lauro Parenti, the CEO of Arbitration Channel, also to Andrea Silva, helping to organize this, Fernando, Rafael, all the backstage, other people that are really helping this to make it real, to make it happening. Without them, this will not be possible. And they all really make it real in a very sustainable way. I really deeply appreciate their help and their commitment to make ADR in a very important institution. Well, this panel is especially, and it's timely and deeply mindful and meaningful for me. In our session, I have two very special guests, and I have the great honor to share this space with them. They are remarkably special in their own field, and they are not special because of their extensive know-how and experience and knowledge, and their I would say their own special way to work with such passion, dedication, and a very special way of really integrity. And I've been generally working and I have testimonied their work for many years, but they are really pushing beyond limits and innovating in their own fields. And you will have the chance and the privilege to follow within those next 2 hours what they have been doing. So stay with us and be privileged with me to follow what they have to say in their own fields. And you might wonder what circular economy and arbitration, mediation, and dispute preventions have to do together. But really, I want to invite you to reflect today on those themes. And as part of my journey, and also through this forum, I've come to understand that the intersection is not only meaningful, but is really, urgent and necessary. Conflict prevention and circular economy for me comes obviously from different worlds, but one focused on governance and peace building, and the other on sustainability and innovation. But for those of us working on the intersection of those topics, law, arbitration, and ESG, the connection between these fields is really essential. Both conflict prevention and circular economy, seek to address systems failure before the escalation of the problems. Conflict prevention does this through early dialogue, inclusive processes, and building institutional trust. Circular economy, in turn, acts through regenerative design, efficiency resources use, and fair value chain. In both cases, we are called to redesign our systems, legal, economic, and environmental, to ensure that they are not only sustainable, but also just and resilient. Since 1972, guys from MIT are talking about scarcity. The first report that mentioned checked balance between production, consumption, natural resources, and check balances in the world about limit to growth treated about scarcity. And scarcity, as we know, whether we're talking about resources, opportunities, or voices, it's a major driver of conflicts. So traditional linear economic models of production externalize costs and deplete natural resources and capital, and amplify social and geopolitical tensions. Circular strategies, on the other hand, promote resources, inclusive innovation, and long-term risks mitigations. So, these are key tools for preventing both environmental collapse and social unrests. For legal professionals like us, us, Mingchao and myself, and arbitrators like Mingchao and myself, this convergence becomes, even more concrete when disputes over environmental harm, over the use of resources, over supply chains, responsibility, and climate urgencies problems, the climbing of the waters, and people losing lands, and climate refugees, are growing. Effective prevention and resolution of these disputes demands more and more legal solutions are demanded. It requires a new mindset. It requires new approaches, new fields becoming to listen to each other. It needs people from new worlds to touch together, new systems of thinking, and anticipatory governance. So, to conclude, what we are trying, and it's not only trying, what we are doing, it's to put the listening, active listening to work, to put both sides of the world, China and Brazil, and this week we put a whole world to discuss together. We had India, we had Russia, we had South Africa, we had so many countries discussing technology, mediation, intercultural approach. And all the conclusions were, we need to listen to each other, we need to work together, we need to find a denominator to have new approaches. So this is my invitation to you to bring your fields to find new denominators, new approaches, new way of working, because I know we will become more inventive with this kind of new approach. So, Mingchao, I will just say that my honor to have you here is huge. You are you have a LLB in international law. You correct me if I'm wrong, but I really did a brief 3-line resume from not 300 pages, but at least 6 pages. You have an LLM in international business law from University of Manchester, and you have a PhD in philosophy. You are executive vice president of Shanghai Arbitration Commission, arbitrator at the International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes. And you worked for more than 5 years as chief representative of the ICC Commission in Shanghai. And you are much more than that. You are just a wonderful person, because all we do is for a better society with wonderful people, for people. And I mean, I've had the chance to be presented by a common friend we have. And we've never met in China, we've never met in Brazil, but we did meet in New York and Paris. So around the world. So the world brought us together. So please, now virtually, I have the pleasure to bring the floor to you and to introduce you to the world as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Daniela. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's really an honor for me to be here today with you, and my immense gratitude to the organizers as well as our supporting organizations, everyone who are making this possible to the world. I a little bit. Thank you so very much for the very kind introduction for me, Daniela. Just a little bit more about myself to provide some background. I'm currently working with Shanghai Arbitration Commission, which is the dominant arbitral institution in Shanghai, administrating more than 8,000 cases per year. That actually also requires us to pay a lot of attention to ESG. On the one hand, to make dispute resolution more environmental friendly, and also it requires us to make this, let's say, business working for the society, to benefit the society. And also it requires a lot of good governance, so as for sustainable development. Before I joined the Shanghai Arbitration Commission, I used to work with the International Chamber of Commerce, International Court of Arbitration. I set up its representative office in Shanghai. That was also an amazing journey that I had to bridge the dispute resolution culture between East and West. I covered 19 jurisdictions during my tenure with ICC. That was amazing. Then I also had the privilege, in fact, to serve as the president of the Arbitration Committee of the Chinese Football Association. I mean, talking about football, it's never a good idea to talk about football before Brazilian. In particular, as a Chinese, we haven't got ourselves into FIFA for, I think, more than 20 years. But I have to say that we are trying to at least make.
Did you have a Brazilian coach?
Yes, we did. We did. Well, they were great. So no, not at all blame to any of our Brazilian coaches or players. In fact, we had quite a lot of friends from Brazil to help Chinese football players, those kids, to grow. But although China doesn't have a very good, results in the competition, the football clubs also are playing by the ESG doctrines as well. For example, the maintenance of a stadium, the grass pitch, that's environment. Then also to promote the culture for better life. As sports is one of the major parts of our daily life, and also cultural stuff, and therefore that's a social part as well. Then finally, the governance, good governance, so as for the welfare of the football players, in particular during the very challenging moments of COVID, so on and so forth. So I can see, the entire career that I had are very much, involved in the ESG. In addition to some focus of on ESG topics as well, including to be on the board of the ESG Standard Association and so on and so forth. But today I would like to first share with you a report of the International Bar Association, which is specifically on the arbitration and the ESG, so that we have a picture of the survey on the connection and relevance between ESG and the dispute resolution. So I start with my PPT slides, if I may. Okay. So it is a report on use of ESG contractual obligations and the related dispute that was developed by the ESG subcommittee of the IBA Arbitration Committee. The report has been spent under the leaderships of two chairmanship. First, under the co-chair of Angeline Welsh, Casey, and Christine Condescello, and then under the chairmanship of co-chairmanship of Anna Maria Taminin, as well as Patrick Piershaw. Then that report covered 4 parts, including introduction, trends in ESG clauses, ESG obligations in investment treaties, and then the resolution of the ESG disputes. We look into these 4 parts. The first one, the ESG and ESG obligations, that's the introduction part, is to highlight some applicable guidance and as well as the regulations relevant to specific groups of entities, which, for example, the corporate that includes OECD guidelines for multinational enterprises, the UN Global Compact. As we all know, that UN has the UN SDG, so on and so forth. That's highly relevant, as well as the UN guiding principles on business and human rights and specific national laws such as UK, Australian Modern Slavery Act, so on and so forth. In addition to that, as a matter of fact, I understand ICC also has the International Chamber of Commerce as the biggest chamber of commerce and the international organization representing the business community, also has quite a few interesting guidelines on ESG for the sustainable business operation as well. Then for investors, these include Equator Principles, the Global Investor Coalition on Climate Change, and various guidelines published by the Investment Association, the UN Principle of Responsible Investments, and so on and so forth. And then for insurers, these includes the principle of sustainable insurance as well. Then that report also on the as we said, on the use of ESG contractual obligations and related disputes. That report is to set out to establish what role arbitration may have to play in the resolution of contractual ESG disputes. And also it provides 3 lines of research, including desk research, survey, roundtable discussion. My understanding it's on the one hand a quite comprehensive report, but it's also in a quite early stage for this report, because ESG as well as the relevant matters are evolving as well. Then the disputes relating to ESG arising from what and where arbitration clauses are included. Then the report is focusing on commercial contracts as well as investment treaties. Then we turn to the next. So a little bit of the executive summary of the report. It's a proliferation of ESG specific requirements in commercial contracts, especially in the context of supply chain, as we can imagine, MA as well as the low market. These are the 3 main areas that we can see ESG specific requirements in commercial contracts. Although there are also quite a lot, different commercial contracts may also refer to ESG requirements, but we can see mostly during the survey, supply chain, merger and acquisition, and the low market. Then the ESG clauses provide a social conscious standard of behavior and relate to, number 1, environmental law and regulation, number 2, human and social rights and the labor rights. Then the number 3, obligations to withhold for engaging in or working with companies linked to bribery and other corrupt practices. Number 4, compliance with voluntary standards of ESGs. Then in particular, to avoid harmful business practices, to improve stakeholder relationships, and also achieve a wider reputational benefits and ensure regulatory compliance. So ESG at this moment, during the survey, what has been reported in the business, focusing on these areas, although the relevance is much wider. Then also it relates to investment treaties. States, in addition to contracts, states in investment treaties are seeking investments that furthers the E, the S, and the G elements of their sustainable agenda. that is reflected in some of the languages adopted in some of the modern model investment treaties. And also specific substantive ESG-related standards are making an appearance in model investment treaties. Though these range from voluntary standards to requiring a specific language. More frequently, investment treaties include a specific carve-out for states' right to regulate on certain issues, including ESG matters. Then at the same time, other less direct mechanisms in investment treaties are expected to incentive states and investors to comply with influential ESG standards, such as treaty which empower arbitral tribunal to take into account an investor's compliance with relevant standards when awarding compensation, and the possibility of a counterclaim being brought by state on the basis of an investor's human rights obligation, as well as a state-to-state mechanism which empower the states to discuss corporate social responsibility standards, environmental protection, and human rights standards. So this increasing concern with the ESG in the context of an investment treaty and investment treaty claims as regards both state and investor behavior reflects a broader trend in international policy and treaty making. So for example, the Paris Agreement on climate change contains an explicit goal to make financial flows consistent with a pathway towards low greenhouse gas emission and climate resilience development. This will in turn affect the rights and the obligations afforded to domestic and foreign investors in their territories. So that's pretty much about the investment treaty framework. It's quite different from private contracts, commercial contracts, which usually affects only the parties of the contracts. Rather, investment treaties, on the one hand, affects the states, while on the other hand, the investors, and not only some specific one individual investor, it affects not only the existing investors, but also forthcoming investors. So it provides an entire legal framework. Then also the resolution of this ESG dispute. That's the fourth part. While initially ESG disputes have been prevalent before domestic courts, it is expected that contractual disputes will arise more and more ESG clauses are incorporated into commercial contracts. There are initiatives to cater specifically for the resolution of ESG disputes, and also the survey results show that one of the most important factors for choice of a dispute resolution mechanism in order to resolve ESG disputes is confidentiality. And this bucks against the trend towards transparency, which is found in business and human rights specific initiatives. That, in fact, brings the potential conflicts, confidentiality, and the transparency. In fact, that had happened previously in investment arbitration already. Arbitration was considered confidential. However, for treaty arbitration, investment treaty arbitration, we had Mauritius Convention, which supports the transparency of investment treaty arbitration, because it apparently involves public policy, whether it's domestic or international. And apparently ESG is also relevant in this sense as well. And therefore, that conflict could be seen in practice and in theory as well. Then all of these points to the likelihood that arbitration will be increasingly used to resolve ESG disputes, especially contractual disputes. So we go first into ESG clauses, some of the introductions. So as we said, over the last 10 years in commercial contracts, we're seeing more and more ESG requirements, including by reference to increasing legislation and regulation in this area, and as well as voluntary standards. These clauses are incorporated into many different types of contracts, as we just said, such as supply contracts, transaction no documents, public sector contracts, employment agreements, shipping agreements, insurance agreements. We actually see ESG clauses expanded into all these, almost all these agreements. And it is especially true in the context of a supply chain agreements, merger and acquisition agreements, and also the agreements in the loan market. But regardless of the industry, sectors, or types of contracts, ESG clauses provide for social conscious standards of behavior and related to, among other things, environmental law regulations such as the use of specific products or packaging or shipping requirements. Human and social rights or labor rights, including laws, regulations that prohibit the engagement of child labor, impose obligation to provide healthy and safe work environment, or to take steps to ensure that companies are not supporting harmful practice through their supply chain, such as the Modern Slavery Act 2015 in the UK. That was, I think, very much a concept of public international law, almost, I think, more than 100 years ago. It evolves, in particular, in the context of ESG. It's becoming more and more relevant. Then obligation to withhold from engaging or working with companies linked to bribery or other corrupt practices, including laws and regulations such as the Foreign Corrupt Practice Act 1977 in the US and the Bribery Act in 2010 in the UK. Well, I would also share that, as I shared with you, that I worked with the Chinese Football Association, and as we know, a lot of times sports is a domain that sometimes corruption and bribery happen, and that also requires a lot of governance for sports. And that was actually the reason why I said ESG had been highly relevant to the practice of football and the Chinese Football Association, even during my tenure. Then also compliance with voluntary standards for ESG issues, such as the UN Guidance Principle on Business and Human Rights, Equator Principles, and the International Financial Corporation Performance Standards. So by introducing these commitments into contracts, companies seek not only to avoid harmful business practice, but also to improve stakeholder relationships, achieve wider reputational benefits, and ensure regulatory compliance. So for these purposes, for these clauses, their purpose very specifically to achieve reporting and transparency obligations in respect of ESG matters, to the setting of targets such as a plan for a net zero transition, as well as the maintenance of a minimum ESG sustainability rating for the life of a contract. Then the forms could be due diligence requirements or compliance obligations, monitoring or reporting requirements, warranties or indemnity. Then the consequences of the breach of obligations could be enter into an agreed remediation process, termination of the contract, or payment of the damages. Number one, warranties. So for ESG related assurance or promises in a contract that can give rise to a claim for damages when it is breached. So it usually arises in transactional documents such as SPAs or in MA. So, for example, we sometimes would find this kind of clause. The supplier or warrant that it has implemented an environmental management system for managing its environmental risk certificate to ISO 14001 or any equivalent standard from a UKAS accredited body and shall comply and maintain certification requirements throughout the term. So that's the warranty we see very often. And that brings into the contractual obligation. Then the due diligence, secondly, usually as a part of an investment process in connection with capital market transactions. For example, the Chancery Land project has devised a question on sustainability capital markets ESG due diligence questionnaire. Several questions, items have been raised, including, for example, does the company have any environmental and sustainability policy which sets out commitments and targets to improve the company's sustainability standards? That includes several different items. Then if yes to any of the questions above, then the relevant details should be provided as well. So due diligence as well.
Mingchao,
yes.
May I interrupt you just a second to reinforce the due diligence topic?
Yes.
As from my past as general counsel for 20 plus years in companies that have been constructing many industrial units in remote areas, and from the experience as well in rubber plantations in remote areas as well, doing investments, I can tell you that due diligence is the, how can I say, the core of, if not well done, is the core of nevralgic problems. And today, studying arbitration, as we all do when arbitrators, I can tell you that the core of problems in investment arbitration is bad due diligences. So when you see sentences of ongoing investment arbitrations, when you see the origin of the problems is bad due diligences, because of the original people are not
Can't see you, Daniela. Hello?
Perhaps you can continue, Mingchao, but it's very interesting what she was saying about the essence of the systems dispute, right?
Yes. Yes, exactly.
You need to plan right in the beginning and see things right in the beginning to avoid a problem in a later stage. I think that was the message.
Exactly. It is important to dig deep into the details, the due diligence, so that we try to avoid as much as possible potential risks. Welcome back, Daniela.
Sorry, I had a problem. My internet just shut down, so I put
Yes.
in the 4G. So, but I had done my comment. I'm sorry to interrupt your presentation. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. Well, I fully agree with you that bad due diligence is always a problem, and even sometimes due diligence becomes something that's subject to negotiation between the parties, and therefore at the end of the day, it becomes a commercial term between the parties, which is negotiable instead of some hard principles, hard doctrines for people to follow. And that's, as you very correctly pointed out, when disputes arise, people, in particular, when the disputes arise in 10 years, 20 years, people consider it was a bad due diligence, but in fact, that came out from a compromise between the parties.
Yes, and this is something that I would like to point out as a very important dispute prevention takeaway.
Yes, exactly. If I may also, add on your very, very insightful comments. When we talked about due diligence, it's usually done by, by a law firm hired by a party, and the parties may eventually confirm the results and the findings of the due diligence. But how do we use the dispute resolution or dispute prevention mechanism, ADR mechanism, to confirm the results?
Exactly. The effectiveness, right? It's not a checklist. It's the effectiveness of
Yes, and also to use these ADR mechanisms to provide guidelines.
Yes.
So that it's not a result of a compromise. It's not a result of a negotiation. It's the solid basis of the transaction, of the performance. But thank you so very much for this.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. Yeah, then also due diligence clauses. We could also find such clauses in the, the other World Bank organizations, including IFC, MIGA, and so on and so forth. I provided some examples for reference as well. Then also number 3, the ESG performance metrics monitoring and reporting system. So ESG performance metrics monitoring and reporting clauses are adopted by corporations that seek to incorporate ESG compliance throughout their value chain. So that's in the value chain, they have the right to monitor. So reporting and transparency in relation to environmental matters, social matters that a corporation has agreed or is required to monitor or audit. Then reducing greenhouse gas emission and setting targets and a plan for transition to net zero. That's apparently one of the key targets we need to achieve within a decade. Maintaining the minimum ESG sustainable rating for the life of the contract, the right of one company to audit the compliance of another company with a specific ESG regulation standard, target, warranty, and take action in line with that result. And also I provided a example that Chancery Lane project has shared a model clause on net zero standard for suppliers. Then the compliance requirements as well. A robust ESG compliance framework through specific compliance clauses in the contract allows business to align business goals with the ESG values. Some code cover key issues such as workforce and labor issues, ethical sourcing and environmental commitments at a high level, while other cover more specific concerns. I also provided, the report actually provided some additional examples as well for reference. Then the contractual remedies. When there are all these clauses to provide contractual obligations, and when they are breached, there will be contractual remedies apparently. So the contracts may include clauses that require a party to prevent and mitigate potential adverse impacts and remediate actual adverse impacts of ESG-related harm. And the purpose of these remediation is to restore, to the extent commercially practical, the affected person to the situation they would have been in had the adverse ESG impact not occurred. And also remediation clauses can arise in varying contexts, including supply chain contract, loan facilities, and joint venture agreements. That's contractual. Indemnity as well could happen as well. So a general indemnity can capture a range of losses in a supply chain context in the following manner. Supplier shall indemnity, defend, and hold harmless buyer and its officer against any and all losses, damages, liabilities, deficiencies, claims, actions, judgments, settlements, interests, penalties, fines, costs, or expenses, or whatever kind, including without limitation the costs of storage, return, export, destruction of goods. The difference in cost between buyer's purchase of supplier's goods and the replacement goods, a reasonable attorney fee, audit fee that would not have been incurred but for supplier's breach. Then also in other corporate relations, such as in insurance policy, the Chancery Lane project, insurance disclosure mitigation of pending climate change litigation clause also provides the insurers will indemnity the insured for any sum that the insured may be legally liable to pay as a result of a pending climate change litigation up to the maximum amount of GBP per claim. So contractual remedies and indemnity as well. And also there could be termination of contracts or even switch of the suppliers. I'm sorry for the format of the slide. It needs to be reformatted, I'm sorry. But termination of the contracts because of the breach of the ESG requirements, obligations, as well as the potential switch of the suppliers without breaching a contract if the ESG requirements is breached. So then also ESG contractual clauses in litigation and international arbitration, it's happened already. The contractual provisions discussed thus far are new and innovative and accordingly remain largely untested before courts and tribunals. However, in light of the broad ESG obligations that they entail, it is likely that they will inevitably lead to dispute that concern complex questions of contractual interpretation, enforcement, and compliance. So disputes may also concern more traditional breach of contract claims in respect of non-performance of ESG obligations and the breach of ESG representations and warranties. So there are several cases to be noted. The report has shared. In fact, two different cases. Okay. Then we turn to the investment treaty.
Excuse me, Mingchao, and those cases you shared, they are multinationals, right?
Exactly.
I mean, they are okay, yeah, and this is exactly what I've been doing advocacy for. I
Yes.
mean, because you know, climate treaties set public law obligations, you know, and these obligations flow into private contracts via, you know, national laws and market standards and voluntary certifications, and these actually lead contracts to put those obligations and become law between parties, and those law between parties, they are internationals, they become multinationals, and they are over abroad countries, right? So what I do advocacy for is that if we don't have arbitration or escalation clauses up to arbitration for ESG contract breach clauses, we will have problems in the future.
Exactly, I fully agree. That will have to be included, and also we need to,
including carbon markets.
Exactly. Yes, all these need to be incorporated into investment treaties, incorporated into commercial contracts, and they need to be tested before arbitral tribunals as well as domestic courts, so that they are not merely, contractual characteristics.
Yeah. Including circular economy, and that's why we need to educate arbitrators in all those topics. But please,
yes,
continue.
I try to finalize that as quickly as possible. Then the investment treaties, ESG-related clauses are now seen more and more often in investment treaties, but they may not be, so obligative. Rather, they might be more notional. So in preambles, for example, but at least it provides a guidance and also set up the context so as to interpret the text of the treaties. In particular, not only referring to ESG but also SDGs, because most of countries are, member states of the UN, and also they incorporate SDGs into their treaties and conventions as well. Then also there could be sometimes jurisdictional clauses that refers to the potential incorporation of ESG issues and standards. There are two interesting examples, including the Morocco model BIT as well as the Nigeria Morocco BIT. Both have this as examples. Then also substantive ESG-related standards sometimes are also incorporated into it. For example, general exceptions regulate right to regulate such exceptions to provide some qualifying statements that state measures should be necessary to protect a sovereign function relating to health, the environment, and so on and so forth, so that these standards will be eventually incorporated into the treaties. Then also institutional, various bodies are granted powers or duties to interpret, discuss, monitor, or directly take into account their decisions making certain ESG standards or behaviors, like Norway draft model BIT, CETA, and also the others, in particular, the Morocco, Nigeria BIT as well. Then the dispute resolution clauses and the wording of dispute resolution clauses and applicable law clause in investment treaties may provide an avenue to consider ESG standards that are not specific in treaties. And also the increasing concern with ESG in the context of investment treaties and treaty claims with regard to both country and investor behaviors reflect a broader trend in international policy and treaty making. So the example again is the Paris Agreement on climate change, which contains an explicit goal to make finance flow consistent with a pathway towards low greenhouse gas emission and climate resilience development. Right. And also, in addition to that, we will have a little bit of focus on the resolution of a dispute, ESG dispute per se. Number one, traditionally, ESG disputes resolution are made through domestic courts, but now alternative dispute resolution mechanisms are available to ESG disputes. Arbitration apparently, commercial arbitration, investment treaty arbitration, and more mediation as well. Then complaint grievance mechanism, which is also widely used in early stage or during performance of the contract, so that the disputes are not eventually escalated to arbitration, which can be very time-consuming and costly. Then integration of dispute resolution clauses as well. Then the environmental aspect of a dispute resolution itself, including we often see green litigation and arbitration protocols, low carbon arbitration hearings, choice of a green governing law clause, and a clause in relation to avoiding excessive paperwork in dispute resolution. I mean, 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago, when I started my career, I was told that in every single commercial arbitration, a huge land of rainforest in Brazil were destroyed because of all those paper. But it's great that we have seen almost all the international arbitral institutions have developed their e-platform to make it environmental friendly. So this is consistent with the wider initiatives elsewhere, such as the campaign for green arbitration, green pledge, whereby arbitration practitioners voluntarily committed to take various steps to minimize the environmental impact of their practice. And also, if we return briefly to mediation, complaint, grievance mechanism, as well as potentially dispute board rules, expert determination, all this kind of ADR mechanisms are to be used to facilitate the prevention and the resolution of disputes, so that we don't have to face not only the risk of the collapse of the relationship, but more importantly, we make the transaction continue, we make the business continue, that will be the lowest cost for us to continue our business, continue our life. So pretty much, I'm sorry, I read a lot because this is a report that came from the brilliant minds of the colleagues of IBA Arbitration Committee, ESG subcommittees, as well as all the responses to the survey. I tried to provide a full picture, and I remain at your disposal for further discussions after a while. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mingchao. I know that it's a huge report, and you did a very, very, very good job in concising it. It was necessary to go deep because, that's why I wanted to have a bit of more time of going deeper, because usually we have just a few minutes and we usually go very shallow on what we have to say. But those topics are needed to go a bit deeper, and to make the connection with all of that to what circular economy is linked to scarcity, as I was saying at the beginning, is all linked actually, because in the real world, when you have an investment, when you have business going on, you have all the supply chain, and you have all the contract going, all the industrial unit being constructed, and you have the real world and nature. You have resources and natural resources that are being used, and you have finite natural resources that actually are being used and are being not used at the very end of their finite life, and they are being disposed as garbage, but they could be still used for different circle of life. And I learned circular economy when I, in 2001, became director in Michelin as in sustainability, when it was a very new world for me. And I had to implement, together with another chemical engineer. It was not Beatriz at that time, it was another dear friend of mine as well, that we had to deal with the end of life of used tires. And for me, used tires were garbage. And at the end, no, we had a lot of things to do with it, because they still had a lot of things for another circle of life. So what is garbage for one industry can be used for another industry, and then we can preserve nature for the rich material nature already gave us, and we are disposal in garbage. So I will let the specialists talk about it, because I'm not the specialist, and she will enrich us that in real world, nature has not garbage, and we invented, the human being invented garbage, and we invented conflict as well, because nature only has conflict for a purpose and for a meaning, and we have conflict for really different purposes and different meanings. So Bia has a degree of chemical engineer by the Federal University in Rio, which is the most prestigious university in Rio. She has a master degree of water and environmental engineering from University of Surrey. She is the CEO of Exchange for Change, and she is the president of the IBEC, Institute of Brazilian Institute of Circular Economy. So, Bia, the floor is yours. She was my professor in circular economy. So it's an honor to have you, and thank you for having the courage to be among lawyers and arbitrators.
Many thanks, Daniela and Mingchao. In fact, I'm very honored to be here because I have learned a lot already. And I think before even I start, we already have key message here, Daniela, that in order to avoid conflict, we need to learn how to work together in multidisciplinary teams, because all these things that we are dealing with these days are very complex. When I listened to Mingchao talking about ESG compliance frameworks, ESG due diligence, ESG parameters, how do we really define these parameters? There's lots of assumptions that are needed to take place. So I'm very privileged to be able to learn so much about this. And well done for you, Daniela, to putting this thematics together. I think this is what we need for the world, for a better world. Bring lawyers and economists and engineers to work together, even the marketeers, the designers. We need to learn how to talk different languages in order to create new frameworks for the future of the planet and our society. So thank you very much. So I'm going to bring a little bit of my journey of working with circular economy. I am an engineer, a chemical engineer. As you pointed out, I had the opportunity to study in the UK and lived there for 10 years, learning of how to develop a public policy for environmental purposes, not directly developing the public policy, but implementing. The UK was the first country in the world to develop a climate change policy. So it was a very learning journey. These 10 years that I worked there, I worked in government-funded programs, assisting industries on how to become more resource efficient, reduce waste, and transform waste into raw materials. I had the opportunity to work in a program that it's called industrial symbiosis. So the symbiosis is in the environment is when you connect two elements and generate a common benefit between two bodies. So in an industry scenario, you're looking at an industry park, and you are bringing companies together to work together so that one company's waste can become another company's resource. So I guess throughout these years, I developed a very much a wider view and a system thinking that led me to start working with circular economy. I worked for the chemical industry in Brazil. So I started learning on how to bring sustainability in the chemical industry, sustainable polymers. And this was the time that Europe was starting to design the circular economy guidelines and practice. And I had the privilege to learn about this journey and decided to make my own transition in 2015 to become independent and bring circular economy to Brazil. So I will bring, we are celebrating our 10th anniversary. So 10 years working with circular economy and learning how to move from policy to action. So I will provide you, hopefully, with a little bit of a view of why the current economy it's in the bridge of collapse, and why do we need a new economy, a new model, a new system thinking, a new business thinking for the future of our planet and our competitiveness. This is the route for system change. Daniela talked a lot about the need to change the system. And then I will bring a little bit of the journey of the Brazilian circular economy process and finalize talking about the opportunities of the global south, China, Brazil, and so on. So Exchange for Change Brazil is an independent organization born to influence the transition to the circular economy. The idea was to co-create and adapt global solutions for the Brazilian reality. And in 2023, with the rise of the discussion in the country, with the launch of the national policy of circular economy, we brought together experts. Daniela is on our advisory board, so she's a key player, bringing knowledge and influencing and assisting on our path. And EBAC was born with a mission to raise the awareness, to position circularity in the strategic agenda for Brazil. So I would like to start with a question. Are we protecting the planet if we destroy less? This was highlight from Michael Brogart. It's a German researcher that has written a book called Cradle to Cradle. So highlighting that the nature is very much a perfect loop. You know, nothing is lost, everything is transformed, and we need to think like that on our day-to-day lives. And if we are just looking at efficiency, we are only be reducing the time that we are going to harm the planet. So it's not about being efficient, but it's about doing things in a different way to create a new process and equilibrium between the planet and our practices. So in order to bring the concept of circular economy, I would like to make a reflection about the linear economy, the current state of how we are doing business. A few years ago, we had a big disaster, a dam collapse in Brazil, and created socioeconomic and environmental damage of huge dimensions. So 134 people died with this dam collapse. Environmental damage threatens hundreds of species. And the company responsible for that dam had 350 million reais in fines, lost 72 billion reais in value, and the shares fell 24% after the accident. So the point here is not to find the reasons for that, but it's to evaluate, is this economy that is sustainable? If we extract minerals from the ground, we produce products, and we just leave the waste there in a dam, just leave there. But at one point, something will happen. So we cannot just leave the waste behind of all the production processes. We need to look at this in a different way. And in fact, the company, after the accident, invested 25 million reais on a production plant for producing bricks out of this waste material. Oh, so that was good, right? But my point is, are we waiting? And do we need to wait for more and more accidents like that to make this kind of investment into something that it has been studied by researchers since 1997? So researchers know that this waste can be used to produce bricks for many times. We know the innovation, we know the technology. Why are we waiting for accidents like that to happen in order to make investments in a different way? So this waste now is seen as a co-product. It has a high silica content and can be used to replace sand. And when you look at sand as a raw material, it's the second most exploited natural resources in the world, and after water. And this causes a lot of damage in riverbeds when you're exploiting the sand. So it makes sense to use this waste material to replace sand. And I brought here also a highlight from a funding agency that said that this accident had actually made their investment suffered a lot. And they realized that neglecting the risk associated with this mining process and the climate issue was a huge fault. So we need to incorporate now this impact into the decision making of investments. And I also wanted to highlight, since 2020, climate-related issues have been dominating the top 5 identified long-term risks on World Economic Forum reports. Anders Leverman, a researcher in Climate Impact Research Institute, he mentioned there's a lot of uncertainty on this type of accidents, but we cannot just sit there and wait for these accidents to happen. This requires urgent action. And one element that is good evidence from this accident is that because we are now able to bring the value of these losses. So the losses related to climate change is like $165 billion. So once we have this accident and we have measured the impact, then it's time to act. And risk management is an extremely important part of the investment process. So this should be a key factor in long-term stability. This is a picture of artificial intelligence made. This is a bridge in São Paulo, and we just kind of simulated this kind of water flow. Just to mention that in 2018, a research has demonstrated that the world is 9% circular. And 2024, the same research demonstrated that the world is 7.2 circular. And most recently, just last week, we had the World Circular Economy Forum in Brazil, And the same study has highlighted that, in fact, the circularity of the world is going down. It's not going up. So we need to stop more and more with extracting, diminish the losses, optimize the process, and circulate more and better. And why is this number going down instead of going up? Because even though we are improving the efficiencies and producing goods that are more durable and repairing things, the growth rate of resource extractions still outpaces efficiencies and recovery gains of secondary materials of a factor of 2 to 3. So if we look into the graph, if we continue extracting and exploiting materials in the same pace, the planet is not going to cope with this. And that's why we need to develop a new sustainable development, a new business model that is in line and in equilibrium with the planet and with the planet's boundaries. So being efficient, respecting the environment, and being socially responsible does not guarantee business survival. A new business mindset is needed, and is needed also to avoid conflict. So if we are working along the value chain in an integrated manner with a new kind of commercial relations, it's more likely that we will establish process that are in equilibrium with the environment and continue to produce goods and improve business and people lifestyles. So the rules, yeah.
Just let me interrupt you just a second, because the report I mentioned in my introduction called The Limit to Growth,
Yes.
that have been issued in 1972, that was commended by a think tank called the Club of Rome, from some clever guys by the MIT that issued the report. Actually, what they checked at that time was the relationship between population, industrial production, food supply, resource depletion, and pollution. And what actually they conclude was the relationship between those factors. And they conclude that if those factors continued unchecked, and the humanity would exceed Earth's carrying capacity within a century.
And
this was 1972.
Yeah. And it's good that you mentioned that, because I will show you the most recently report that they produced, the Club of Rome, about the need for system change. So it's about changing the rules of the game. We need to redesign products and services. We need to reevaluate production processes. And most importantly, redefine values, attitudes.
I think she had a problem as well. But what is interesting is that I'm very keen to listen to this new Club of Rome what they report, this new report. But as you see, it's very interesting what she said about to wait the accident to arrive, to do what was abandoned, you know, and really to use sand to do bricks, as the waste was there and bricks could have been done by the waste. This is what actually the impact we do with sometimes things that we can do and we don't do. And the prevention of using resources that are wasted is the impact I would like to put minds together that are from different worlds by events like this and by the Glass Forum. I'm founding and I'm co-presidenting with Yannick Vincent, a friend of mine, colleague from Paris, by the Glass Forum, meaning Global Arbitration and Sustainability Forum think tank. By putting minds together from different worlds, choosing themes to go deeper in research, preventing in advance things like that to happen. Welcome back, Bia.
Yes, I got so excited that I removed myself from the room.
But I took the opportunity to talk about Glass Forum, but here we are. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I think we've established now the grounds, for coming into the definition of what circular economy is about. You can see my slides now, right? This is a nice visual demonstration of what we call the value pyramid. So in a linear economy, we are extracting the materials, we are producing goods, and the use phase, it's on the top of the pyramid. After we use the products, we throw it away and we destroy the value. And circular economy is about maintaining and keeping the value of the product for a longer time. So keeping the product on the top of the pyramid for longer periods of time by repairing the product, by creating a remanufacturing industry. And after that, the last value cycle of value is recycling. So we will see that if we are closing the loop of the materials more and more, maybe we will need less and less materials extraction from the ground, because we keep the materials in a loop system. And that requires new processors, new tools, new technologies, and new skills. And that's why we are in this transition phase, and we need to bring leaders on board, industry, government, to develop new incentives, policies, and standards, and incorporate this into the contracts, so business will understand what is this new processes. So this is the report, Daniela, International System Change Compass. So we live more and more in this interconnected planet. So the scenario that you brought to us, that was discussed back in 1972, has just gone more and more critical. And beyond that, the planet is more and more connected. The value chains are all interconnected. So it's not a transition that will happen only in one region, in one country. And that's why now it's a global debate. When Mingchao mentioned about the ESG disputes were usually in a kind of a local level, now is becoming in a global level, because accidents can affect and decisions, and we are seeing this in a very recently times, decisions, market decisions, trade decisions in one country can affect the whole value chain in other regions?
Well, actually, there is a Peruvian farmer against an electric German company, which is even not a place in Peru that has been accepted in German because of an action in German that is impacting his land in Peru because it's flooding his land. So it's really global, you know.
Yeah, we are living what we call a triple planetary crisis. So waste and pollution, loss of biodiversity, and climate change impact. And circular economy can address these triple planetary crisis, but we cannot wait for lengthy discussions. We have to change faster, and we need to redefine the goals that governments set themselves. So here is the point of such an important work that you are doing, and Daniela and Mingchao, and all these discussions on bringing ESG standards to avoid future disputes. And because incremental efficiencies, as I said, gains will not prevent climate change. So the transition is about reshaping the government system. And these reports show this amazing compass that demonstrates that we require new indicators for the development of a global economy, new definition of competitiveness. So basically, it shows that we have to redefine everything. We redefine prosperity. We redefine natural resource use. We even redefine consumption, finance, governance, competitiveness. And on top of all of that, redefine leadership. So it's all about people, decisions, and having good leaders understanding the role they have to play and building this new ecosystem. So this new global government systems brings 3 horizons of recommendations, taking concrete steps to adjust international market governance, building the institutional gap for global resource management. So more and more, we need to understand this long value chains. So Europe needs natural resources. The global south is where all the natural resources lie. So how can we work together as global south markets and liaising with the global north and creating new standards and government models to ensure this natural flow of materials, and working towards institutional redesigning of products and process and institutions. So basically, another interesting report from the World Bank says that it is possible to disconnect growth from resource exploitation. So circular economy is not about not growing your business. It's about growing and developing in a different way, in a more equilibrium way with the planetary resources. But we need new policies. We need a new government agenda. We need to unlock investments to support the demand for new products and new consumption models. So the private sector will be central to the implementation of these new circular business models. And basically, we'll see more and more if we work towards circularity and making this flow of materials and assessing the way that we are producing basic materials and we are using the materials, we can reduce the total emissions by 40%. And most certainly we can reduce conflict. So research has shown that total emissions, when we look at the total current emissions, 55% is from the energy that we are using, and 45% is from the products that we use. And this is the connection why we need to look at products and redesign products, redesign processes. So one very practical example, the world is looking at the energy transition, more solar panels, more windmills. But a recent research from Australia shows that Australia is generating 145,000 tons of photovoltaic panel waste by 2030. And why is that? Because we brought this new technology, this renewable energy that was supposed to reduce emissions, and we did not look at all the equipments needed for this to be put into place. So there is an equivalent of 214 Mount Everests and investments needed of $10 million to recycle now all of these solar panels. And one point that we are addressing a lot is the investments that are being made for energy transition around the world. You know, we are discussing climate finance. We need to incorporate on this finance, climate finance, an allocation of funds to deal with all these new materials.
So let me do a parallel.
Yeah.
At the same way, we don't look in anticipation how to deal with the solar panels before putting them in place. We don't deal with to prevent conflicts between putting the contracts in place. So and one thing that we really connect, Mingchao and myself, the first time we met and we discussed, it was the function of the lawyer that is to seek for peace. And this is one new way of approach for the role of lawyers, the role of arbitrators, the role of mediators, the role of legal people in legal functions to approach preventing conflicts in all the functions. As look the ones in industry, what to do before doing, what to do with before doing. I don't know if Mingchao want to say something, just to tell that we have only 18 minutes.
Okay.
Yes, well, it's pretty much, sometimes path dependence problem as well. The traditional way that we develop the economy was to improve the efficiency, to make good use of the natural resources without thinking deep how that would eventually impact the entire ecosystem and the economic system. And that requires a lot of education, that requires a lot of change of the mindset. And so on the one hand, let me perhaps share with you a story that I had. When I was in my high school, I traveled to Hangzhou, Zhejiang province, in fact, a province next to Shanghai. And that was in 1990s, early 1990s. China has had its opening up policy for 15 years to less than 20 years. And the economy has been developing very quickly. But I saw that all the rivers, lakes were polluted. And I tried to discuss with the local people that they need to protect the environment. I didn't know where I learned that, but I thought I should discuss with them to convince them that the development economy needs to be balanced with the protection of the environment. And they told me that the development of economy, the improvement of their life standard were actually the highest priority that they had. That was the 1990s. And the mindset was like that at that moment. But now things have been changed. People realize that, the Green Mountain is equivalent, as they said, is equivalent to a gold mountain. So now they realize the necessity for balance. Then that also requires a evolving of the mindset further. Not only to see the balance between the environmental protection and economic development, but also the balance between, as we discussed, the balance between when we start some business, we need to think about the prevention of the potential risks and the potential disputes. That requires a higher level of capacity, a higher level of understanding of the term balance. So that's pretty much what I can think of very quickly at this moment. I'm sorry.
Let me just say that we have a few more minutes if you can stay with us. That's okay for the very kind channel, arbitration channel. They allow us to stay a bit more and to end our discussion if you can stay with us. Mingchao, it's okay for you? Sure. Even if it's a bit late in China?
No problem.
Yeah, it's okay for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Even if it's a bit tiring for our audience, a bit more than 2 hours, but I'm very happy to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, and I think what you have highlighted when you say, Daniela, the role of the lawyers to look for peace, it's a fact. But in order to look for peace, you need to highlight problems and future problems that do not exist yet. So I think this is the challenge that we are discussing here. In order to avoid dispute, we need to bring the problems to the present time. And nobody wants to discuss problems before it rises. But by bringing all these evidences, I think we create the need for finding this new balance. And another connection between ourselves here is that most of the solar panels that are coming to Brazil, Mingchao, are being produced in China. So how can we build that bridge to ensure that the solar panels, for example, just using this as a very kind of practical example, can be brought to Brazil already with the instructions how to dismantle them afterwards, how to repair, how to fix them, and how to allocate funding for that after use phase as well. So moving forward, I just want to finish by bringing the experience. I realized in 2019 that we need to work in a systemic way. We need to bring businesses in all parts of the value chain, small companies, big companies, and different sectors to work together in studying this circular economy and better educating engaging and developing, co-creating solutions. So the Brazilian Circular Economy Hub has been in operation since 2020, and basically is a multi-sector ecosystem that aim at accelerating the transition by bringing business together and working on structural changes, education, and creating practical actions. So we have been working up to 30 member companies since 2020, and I will share the 3 key learnings of this experience, which is very much in line with what we have been discussing here, and very much in line. I'm very happy again to learn more about this work of the arbitrators, because it's very similar in a way to the work that I've been doing in bringing these companies together to develop new system, new process, new business models. So the first learning is about having a common vision, developing a joint vision of a new world, a new business metrics for success. The second learning is about how we're going to do that, and it's about data and people. And the third learning is that we need to redefine roles and responsibility. So having a common vision is about understanding the concept of circular economy. As Mingchao mentioned, we need to bring this new mindset, and this requires the CEO engagement, the CEO involvement, to promote a new culture and government favorable to this transition. And it's about having the right information, it's about having the right data, and who brings the data is the people. So in a way, it's not just about policy and investments and finance. In the essence, in the core of all of this are the people, and the people can really make these changes if they are committed, if they are engaged. And by doing this, we need to redefine roles and responsibilities. And I highlight one person that has been my inspiration on this journey. Jacqueline Kramer is the former Ministry of Environment in the Netherlands. And she says that different actors are working in silos in a value chain. So even inside the organizations, there are different departments and different silos. So in order to create these circular initiatives, we need new forms of cooperation. And this is a real challenge. So she came up with a position of the transition brokers, which is this independent actor that can help to align all the relevant stakeholders, create alliances, and build this common agenda. So throughout the 5 years of the Brazilian Circular Economy Hub, we come up with these 7 key elements of circular governance, which it starts with this ecosystems, building this common agenda, having the facilitator on board in order to find this new balance. And this new balance requires a lot of conversation, a lot of information, and there will be tensions throughout this time. But the tension is part of the transition and should be seen as a natural and necessary move. So we need data in order to measure the impact and come up with results for this new model.
Mingchao, don't it make it to think about mediation?
Yes, that's absolutely a possibility for
So
mediation.
I am an arbitrator, right, Daniela?
No, it's mediation,
Mediator.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, I fully agree. Yes.
So just to finalize with the actual practical project, we have the white goods sector, fridges, ovens, wash machines, and the sector now needs to bring this back in a reverse logistics to recuperate this material. So when you look at this design, the blue line is as if the white goods sector are doing that alone. They have to go to the consumer house, get the old wash machine, process the old machine, brings to the repair
Shop.
warehouse and bring it back. But if you do this in an expanded way, in a collaborative way, if you look at the yellow line and the light blue line, more people you bring on board, you reduce the risk, you reduce the individual cost.
Bia, what is the yellow line?
It's individual project is the blue, dark blue. Integrated project is the yellow, and systemic project is the light blue.
Okay.
So the more we make it systemic
Okay.
discussion, the less cost is for each of the player, because you're sharing the risk, you're sharing the cost, and then you are creating joint benefits. So I say that is one sector benefiting for the other sector. So if you bring, for example, a steel manufacturer, the steel manufacturer wants the old wash machines and the old fridges to put in their oven. So why don't we create this new ecosystem together and create this new economic balance?
You mean that the steel industry wants what's inside the old fridge?
Exactly. They want the steel, the waste material from the white goods sector is raw material for the steel sector. But they are,
and then you put the two companies together, and then you can make business from that.
Yes, we need to realign, the model and create
What's
new
waste from one industry, it's resource for another one.
Exactly. And instead of developing separate commercial discussions, we bring them together to create a new indicator, new processes, a new value system.
And this is circular economy.
This is
Circular economy, it's not reverse logistic.
Yeah, because reverse logistics is about compliance. If you go to the white goods sector and say, now you have the obligation to bring your product back, it will be resistance. But if you demonstrate your waste can become value for another industry, we are creating reversed value chains, reverse supply chains, and not reverse logistics. So it's about narrative, it's about bringing and turning cost into investment, creating.
Thank you very much. This is the essence of circular economy.
Exactly. But it's difficult to bring peoples together that not necessarily talk to each other in this way. Because usually the commercial and the procurement department are talking. What we are doing, the Brazilian Circular Economy Hub, and with this example, is elevating the discussion to a strategic level. It has to be seen as a new business model with new indicators, with new parameters, not just on the backstage of negotiating, buying and selling.
Usually I used to say that sometimes general counsels and law firms are talking to wrong people when they ask for documents inside the companies. They need to talk to procurements and they need to talk to purchasing, because they are the ones in dispute boards, for instance. They are the ones purchasing who control the contracts. So sometimes they go for general counsels. They don't deal with for instance EPC's contracts for constructing industrial units. They don't have the proofs. They don't know who are the testimony people that they need to call. Law firms need to go to purchasing, so, and very simple things, but you need to put the right people in the right
people together. And that's why the
together.
role of mediators. Because
Yes.
the mediator can
Yeah,
understand,
exactly.
who to bring into the discussion on the right
Exactly.
side. Yeah.
And then sometimes you prevent disputes only with the right people. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is just to highlight there is a timeline of favorable ecosystem in Brazil. We now have a circular economy national strategy. We had an action plan for the next 10 years, and we have the COP30, at the end of the year. A few weeks ago, we had the World Circular Economy Forum here in Brazil, and we are discussing the circular economy as a global scenario. So there is a global circularity protocol in place, and this report is bringing a guidance, a voluntary model that address this lack of responsibilities of industries and leaders, the development of public policies. So it is a global discussion, and it will become a global dispute if we don't redesign system, if we don't redesign our mindsets. So these reports bring numbers into place. For example, the benefits of reducing global material consumption, reducing the GHG emissions by 6 to 7% if we look at circular economy practices, and we also reduce air pollution and emissions. So just to finalize, the World Circular Economy Forum came from Belgium, happened in Brazil, and next year is going to be in India. Circular economy is already in the essence of all the BRICS discussion. So we have an opportunity here to work together to rethink our negotiation models, rethink our skills, and looking into a new world that will bring value to everyone. So just to finalize, conclusion is essential to stimulate the creation of this collective intelligence and developing a systemic and comprehensive look at solutions. Let's integrate our thinking. Let's build multidisciplinary teams and turn costs into investments. By redefining roles and responsibility, we can develop a new vision of governance and construct these new reverse chains and bring value and maintain value of things in a global way. So this is what I wanted to leave you with. Thank you, Daniela. Thank you, Mingchao. And hopefully we can continue this discussion, because I'm sure I still have a lot to learn.
Well, thank you very much, Bia. I will pass the floor to Mingchao for the final remarks. You have 5 minutes, Mingchao. This and then Bia, just final remarks as well, if you want. I will take the floor for the 3 last minutes, just because this is the last panel for the BRICS Plus event. And please, Mingchao.
Well, thank you very much, Daniela, and thank you very much, Bia. It's such an amazing presentation. Thank you so much. I learned so much from you, from your presentation. It's also, brings me to quite a few, thoughts. And number one, what role mediation can play. Traditionally, we consider mediation as an alternative to litigation and arbitration. However, to me, myself, I would consider mediation an alternative or extension of negotiation rather than arbitration and litigation. Because the litigation and arbitration are the mechanisms to make decisions where there are differences, while mediation is a way of facilitated negotiation. Mediator is there to put different puzzles into the right place to make it a good picture. And when we talked about this circular economy, in particular in the example that you raised, via the refrigerators, the ovens, and so on and so forth, that's probably what mediation can do to facilitate all this kind of negotiations, strategic collaboration. In particular, when those mediators understand not only law, but more importantly, the industry, and in particular, the values of different products, as we, an old saying, one man's meat is another man's poison, vis-a-vis. then for a mediator who understands the real value, could play a facilitative role for this kind of a strategic collaboration. And that's probably what mediator and probably legal professionals could assist in this process, number one. And number two, also, we have to not only probably facilitate this kind of a strategic collaboration within a certain period of time. We will also have to take into account the development, the long-term development from the beginning, commencement, towards the future. For example, the current waste of lithium batteries for EV cars. The reason why we had EV cars a decade ago was that we consider the traditional cars were consuming too much natural resources and brought in a lot of emission, greenhouse gas emission. And therefore, we turned to EV cars and also using these lithium batteries. However, technologically speaking, we were not at that moment so advanced in technology, and therefore, I don't think a lot of entrepreneurs were in the position to think what they should do in a decade with all these lithium batteries. And now we are facing potentially the risks and the crisis in the coming decade. How we are going to deal with these things. And that example probably rings the bell that we will have to not only look at the problems and that we are facing now and probably in the future. We also have to look back why this happened, what caused it a decade or 2 decades ago, and then learn from that as well. So that's pretty much what I have at this moment. But I did learn a lot, really a lot from both of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mingchao. Thank you very much. Bia, last remarks, closing remarks.
No, I think it was very, I've learned a lot as well. And the message perhaps for us is, how can we create ecosystems that are multidisciplinary? How can we work together in building this new system, these new standards? How can we create time in our busy lives to have more moments like that are so powerful and meaningful? So thank you very much. And I hope we can continue learning more and bringing these words that seems far apart, but they are very well connected. And I'm sure that we can create contracts and process and products and solutions much easier if we learn how to work together. So the essence of the transition is the people that are there together, building trust and building friendships along the way. It will make a much better place for all of us. So thank you and well done for this amazing event.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dia. Well, if I may, this is our last panel of the law BRICS countries, BRICS plus countries ADR Law Week. Our first, hopefully, from many. If I may, thank you, Ana Rubia, for watching us. She asked, we need education. Yes, we do. Actually, education has been, from all the panels, one pointed out topic. As I said, I'm founding the Global Arbitration and Sustainability Forum, a think tank, to address this space, this room, to go deep into topics to bridge the intersection between ESG and ADR. We will launch this probably in July. This will be virtual, first of all, a virtual think tank in the internet. We will have, first of all, 4 or 5 topics, and members will be able to join the topics they will be connected with. This will be a room to research, to exchange. It will be global. We will have people from all over the world exchanging, researching. It will be a free space to really exchange about the intersection of all those topics. And it will be a space of education as well, Anna. We exchanged this whole week in all the panels about technology, about mediation, about arbitration, and the conclusion we all have is we need to be together, we need to educate, we need each other. And I learn a lot from you as well today. Actually, we realized that being in Brazil, being in South Africa, being in China, being in India, being in Bangladesh, in Russia, we sometimes think the same thing, feel the same thing, and lose energy not being together and think together. So we do this because of people. We need to be with people and to do it for people, because all of this is about people. So thank you again for Channel Arbitration. Thank you again for Dia, for Mingchao to be together with me today. My regards to my dearest China, that I loved to spend 4 of my precious years living there in Shanghai. I hope it's not too cold in São Paulo today. And thank you for the audience to be with us. See you hopefully very soon. Thank you for Daniel and for Elisaveta, who had the courage as well to build this with me. And see you very soon. Bye-bye and have a lovely weekend. Ciao.
Thank you very much.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you. Ciao,
Have
ciao.
a good weekend. Ciao, ciao.